I meant to say Vermilion Lloydminster.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as Albertans are merrily turning on Christmas lights for their last carbon tax-free holiday season, many are wondering just how much more power will cost once they finish singing Auld Lang Syne. The government has unleashed a veritable blizzard of power-related announcements in recent days, and Albertans are wondering just what size of shovel they will need to dig out from the avalanche of increased NDP costs. So to the Energy Minister, including loans to the balancing pool and subsidies to renewable energy generators, what is your best estimate of the additional cost of implementing all facets of the NDP power plan?
Minister of Environment and Parks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And of course, there is no carbon levy on electricity, Mr. Speaker. What there is, however, is a series of rebates to lower and middle income folks for their use of transportation fuels and heating fuels, Mr. Speaker, and a variety of programs that Albertans can avail themselves of, some $650 million worth of efficiency programs that will apply to both reducing transportation fuel use, heating fuel in homes, and electricity use, Mr. Speaker. In addition, the renewables contracts will be dealt with through a competitive procurement process, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
First supplemental.
Well, Mr. Speaker, given that there are many contributors to the overall price tag, and given that this complicates the exact amount that Alberta taxpayers will end up shelling out, so to the Energy Minister, let's just look at one phase of the cost. Given that considerable subsidies will be required to bring the increase to the 30% target for renewable energy set by this government, what is the government's best estimate of the total cost of subsidies for renewables in total between now and 2030? Good question.
Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we are undertaking a competitive auction process, Mr. Speaker, as recommended by the Alberta Electricity System Operator. We are in the middle of that process right now, Mr. Speaker. What we do know is that renewables are now competitive with natural gas, Mr. Speaker. However, they do have a different economics to them. And so with natural gas coming on, we'll be looking at the capacity market, as the Minister explained to the public a couple of weeks ago. And for the renewables, we will do a contract for differences model because we know that this is the lowest cost procurement for both types of power, Mr. Speaker.
Second supplemental.
Mr. Speaker, Albertans would like to know what the cost is. So given that this NDP government is trying to encourage new renewable energy production, which we support, and given that Alberta already has over 10% of its existing generation from renewable sources, including wind and solar, and given that the government has yet to indicate to existing generators of renewable energy as to whether existing infrastructure will be eligible for subsidies, so to the Energy Minister, can you clarify, will companies who already have existing renewable generation infrastructure be eligible for subsidies on both existing as well as newly constructed renewable infrastructure?
Honourable Minister.
Speaker. As for overall costs, whether it's the rebates, the investments in efficiency, infrastructure, renewables, or technology, those were contained within the budget of, that we passed earlier this year, Mr. Speaker. As for existing renewables, that is part of the conversation with the capacity market, Mr. Speaker, and part of the consultations that the Minister announced. But for the 30% goal and that competitive procurement process and that contract for